Good morning and welcome to the live reading session from Neethu's Academy. I am Twinkle and hope you have a wonderful weekend. Without wasting much time, let's get into a reading test. I'll give you the basic details of reading. So you have 1 hour for reading and you have to attempt 40 questions. And the test is divided into 3 sections, each having 13 to 14 questions, 12, 13 or 14 questions, a total of 40 questions. Alright, so today I'm going to help you do certain types of questions. We have several types of questions like true, false, not given, filling in the blanks, finding information from the passage, completing sentences. There are several different types. So I have not taken a complete test today. I have taken just 2 passages which are difficult. One is difficult and the other one is easy. So we'll do the easy one first, and then actually in the test the difficulty level is progressive. Okay, right. So before beginning the test, the basic thing you have to do is read the title. For this live session, the passage will be shown on the screen and I will take you through how to find the answers for each question. Alright, so you have your reading passage 2 and you are supposed to spend about 20 minutes. I would say that's not ideal. You can finish it as early as possible so that you have more time to spend on the difficult passages. You can attempt reading test in 2 ways. Those who are proficient in English, if you want to read the entire thing once and then go find the questions, read the questions and find the answers, that is fine. But most of the people who attempt IELTS find reading passages difficult or reading test difficult. So there is something called time management, which is in your hands. Okay, so you have to attempt 40 questions in 60 minutes. That means each question, for each question you can spend about 1 minute and some seconds. And in that time you have to read the question, find the answer from the passage, and then write it down on the answer sheet then and there itself. So in that aspect it varies from listening test, because listening you have to write the answers first on the in a rough sheet or on the question paper, and then transfer the answers onto the answer sheet at the end of the test. But here in reading, it is important to know, because several people have this idea that it similar to listening test. It's actually not. You have to write the answer then and there on the answer sheet itself, not roughly. If you write it roughly, then you may not get enough time to transfer it onto the answer sheet. So and another thing is that it is important to focus on what you are reading. You have to understand literally what you are reading. Okay, and for people who are not so proficient in English, they will find it difficult to understand by reading it just once. In that case, just concentrate on the question, then skim and scan. There is something called skimming and scanning, which will help you find the answers easily. Okay, now let's see how to do this test which I have brought you. So first thing that we have to do is read the title. It is about second nature. So when you read the title, you won't understand what exactly it is. So let's just read what is written underneath that. Your personality isn't necessarily set in stone. With a little experimentation, people can reshape their temperaments and inject passion, optimism, joy and courage into their lives. So basically it's about a person's character, how to change it or something of that sort. Now what we will do is go read the first set of questions. So here, since I have taken the second passage, the question number starts from 14. Okay, questions 14 to 18, we have to complete the summary. And it is important, it's absolutely imperative that you read the instructions carefully and then write the answers according to that. Here the instruction says no more than 2 words. Now let me explain this one also, because several people have this doubt. If the instruction says no more than 2 words, it does not mean that you have to write absolutely 2 words itself. It means that your answer can have either 1 word or 2 words, not more than that. Okay, so it can be 2 words or 1 word. All right, let me go through the questions now. Choose no more than 2 words from the passage for each answer. Write your answers in boxes 14 to 18 on your answer sheet. Now, psychologists have traditionally believed that a personality dash was impossible and that by a dash a person's character tends to be fixed. Okay, we have to fill in the blanks. Okay, this dash or this blank we have to fill in. Now let's see. Psychologists have traditionally believed that a personality something was impossible. What was impossible? Personality, something related to personality was impossible, and that by a dash, by something, a person's character tends to be fixed. Let's go and check the answers now. Okay, we have to read from the beginning. Okay, psychologists have long held that a person's character cannot undergo a transformation in any meaningful way. Now we got the first answer to question number 14. What it says here is that psychologists have traditionally believed that a personality dash was impossible. So what have they believed? That a transformation was not possible. So your 14th answer is transformation. Next one. And that by a dash a person's character tends to be fixed. So we have to continue reading from where we left off. And that the key traits of personality are determined at a very young age. So you get the answer there, young age. By a young age, a person's character tends to be fixed. So basically, they have given the same sentence which is in the passage in other words without changing the meaning. So that is what is called paraphrasing. This is not true according to positive psychologists who say that our personal qualities can be seen as habitual behavior. One of the easiest qualities to acquire is dash. Now we have to go and find what they have written about quality. So it should be a quality name. Right. Now we have to just read fast and check out the number of qualities they've given. However, researchers have begun looking more closely at ways we can change positive. Psychologists have identified 24 qualities we admire, such as loyalty and kindness, and are studying them to find out why they come so naturally to some people. What they are discovering is that many of these qualities amount to habitual behavior and determines the way we respond to the world. So basically that was given there. Now the answer, we still haven't reached the answer. The good news is that all this can be learned. Now, some qualities are less challenging to develop than others, which means some are easy to acquire. Optimism being one of them. So, you got your answer. One of the easiest qualities to acquire is optimism. Optimism is your answer. Next one. However, regardless of the quality, it is necessary to learn a wide variety of different dash in order for a new quality to develop. So regardless of the quality, people have to learn a wide range of something. Okay, let's go and check the answers. However, developing qualities requires mastering a range of skills. So you have there different wide variety of, instead of that they've given there a range of different what? Skills. So 17th answer is skills. Let's continue reading. For example, a person must understand and feel some dash in order to increase their happiness. Okay, so however, developing qualities requires mastering a range of skills which are diverse and sometimes surprising. For example, to bring more joy and passion into your life, you must be open to experiencing negative emotions. So it's the same thing which is given in different words. A person must understand and feel some negative emotions. That is your answer, negative emotions, in order to increase their happiness. So you got all the answers for summary completion. Now we move on to the next set of questions, which is, look at the following statements and the list of people below. Match each statement with the correct person A to G. So you have only 4 questions here and you have 7 people given here. And now, like I said before, I've always said before in my other live sessions, it is always better to check the list, the names of people in the passage than trying to find out the meaning of what is given here in the question. Okay, so just check for the names, then read what is given about them in that paragraph or passage, and then you will be able to find the answers easily. All right. But before that, we have to read everything in the question section. So you have 4 questions here. You have to understand, you have to actually understand what is written here, so that when you read it in the passage, you get the answers easily. Okay. People must accept that they do not know much when first trying something new. It's quite easy to understand. So when somebody tries something new, they should accept that they do not know much about it. Who said that? That is what we have to find out. It is important for people to actively notice when good things happen. Okay. Courage can be learned once its origins in a sense of responsibility are understood. Okay. So this means that somebody can be courageous if they feel that it is their responsibility. It is possible to overcome shyness when faced with the need to speak in public. So if somebody needs to speak in public, if it is imperative, if it is important for them to speak in public, then they have to overcome shyness, and it is possible to do so. Who said that? So now you have the list of people. You have Christopher Peterson, David Fajgenbaum, Susan Segerstrom, Tanya Streeter, Todd Kashdan, Kenneth Pedilios, Cynthia Puri. So you have the names of people here. Now what do? You go back to the passage and start looking for names. And we have the first name here, Christopher Peterson. The evidence is good that most personality traits can be altered, says Christopher Peterson. Now, we should not stop there. There are people who, just stop there thinking that this person has said only this, so there is nothing much. But we have to actually read the entire thing, what is given under this person's name, so that we understand if there is an answer there. Okay, let's read that once more. Evidence is good that most personality traits can be altered, says Christopher Peterson, professor of psychology at the University of Michigan, who cites himself as an example. Inherently introverted, he realized early on that as an academic, his reticence would prove disastrous in the lecture hall. So he learned to be more outgoing and to entertain his classes. Now my extroverted behavior is spontaneous, he says. So we have the person saying that he was introverted, and since he was a professor, he had to take classes, and his introverted nature would prove to be disastrous in class. So he had to change himself, and that is what we have here. It is possible to overcome shyness when faced with the need to speak in public. So who's said that? It is Christopher Peterson. So your 20-second answer. See, we got the 20-second answer first. If we go in order, it will take a long time to find out the meanings of what people have said, and then cross check it with the question, and it'll take up a lot of time. It'll be time consuming. So you have to just look for the names and then go and cross check it with the people who have said that, and you will get the answer. So it is possible to overcome shyness when faced with the need to speak in public. So Christopher Peterson is the person who said that. Your 20-second answer is A. Now let's go back. So you have to, I have actually highlighted all this, but in an exam hall, you know that it won't be highlighted. So you have to actually read everything to find out the answers. Okay. So now we have the name David Fajgenbaum. David Fajgenbaum had to make a similar transition. He was preparing for university when he had an accident that put an end to his sports career. On campus, He quickly found out that beyond ordinary counseling, the university had no services for students who were undergoing physical rehabilitation and suffering from depression like him. He therefore launched a support group to help others in similar situations. He took action despite his own pain, a typical response of an optimist. We don't have anything similar to that in the questions that we read. People must accept that they do not know much, that it's not there. It is important for people to actively take notice when good things happen. That is also not given there. Courage can be learned once its origins in a sense of responsibility are understood. That is also not there. Okay, so we can leave out his name. Next, moving on, Suzanne Segerstrom, professor of psychology at the University of Kentucky, believes that the key to increasing optimism is through cultivating optimistic behavior rather than positive thinking. She recommends you train yourself to pay attention to good fortune by writing down 3 positive things that come about each day. Now you get your next answer. Susan Segerstrom said that it is important for people to actively notice when good things happen. So your 20th answer is C. I hope you have understood that. Now we have 2 more questions left. Let's read on. You can recognize a person who is passionate about a pursuit by the way they are so strongly involved in it. Tanya Streeter's passion is freediving, the sport of plunging deep into the water without tanks or other breathing equipment. Beginning in 1998, she set 9 world records and can hold her breath for 6 minutes. The physical stamina required for this sport is intense, but the psychological demands are even more overwhelming. Streeter learned to untangle her fears from her judgment of what her body and mind could do. In my career as a competitive freediver, there was a limit to what I could do, but it wasn't anywhere near what I thought it was, she says. Okay, so nothing related to what we read in the questions here. Let's move on. Finding a pursuit that excites you can improve anyone's life. The secret about consuming passions, though, according to psychologist Paul Sylvia of the University of North Carolina, is that they require discipline, hard work, and ability, which is why they are so rewarding. Psychologist Todd Kashdan has this advice for people taking up a new passion. As a newcomer, you also have to tolerate and laugh at your own ignorance. Now we get the next answer. People must accept that they do not know much when first trying something new. Who said that? Todd Kashdan. So E is your answer for question number 19. Now we have the last one, 21 left. In 2004, physician scientist Mauro Zapatera began his PhD research at Harvard Medical School. Unfortunately, he was miserable as his research wasn't compatible with his curiosity about healing. He finally took a break, and during 8 months in Santa Fe, Zapatera learned about alternative healing techniques not taught at Harvard. When he got back, he switched labs to study how cerebrospinal fluid nourishes the developing nervous system. He also vowed to look for the joy in everything, including failure, as this could help him learn about his research and himself. Okay, nothing there. Since I am teaching you, I am reading out everything. Now, it's not necessary that you read everything like this. When you are doing the test, you can just run your eyes on the words, and if something strikes you, you should look at that. Now we were looking for names. Now we don't have any names here except Kashdan, which we already used for one answer. Now we move on, and we have the name here, Kenneth Pedalios. Right, we read that part. Usually we think of courage in physical terms, but ordinary life demands something else. For marketing executive Kenneth Pedalios, it meant speaking out against something he thought was ethically wrong. The new manager was intimidating staff, so Pedalios carefully recorded each instance of bullying and eventually took the evidence to a senior director, knowing his own job security would be threatened. Eventually, the manager was the one to go. According to Cynthia Puri, a psychologist at Clemson University, Pedalios' story proves the point that courage is not motivated by fearlessness but by moral obligation. So, you have the answer for 21 here. Cynthia Puri said that courage can be learned once its origins in a sense of responsibility are understood. Responsibility, instead of the word responsibility, they have used moral obligation. So you got the answers for all these. 19, it is people must accept that they do not know. Who said that? Todd Cashner. It is important for people to actively notice when good things happen. That was said by Susan Segerstrom. Then courage can be learned, Cynthia Pure. And it is possible to overcome shyness. That was said by Christopher Peterson. Now we have the last 4 questions of this section. Questions 23 to 26. Reading passage 2 has 8 sections, A to H. Which section contains the following information? So in this type of question, what you have to do is, just like we did in the previous case, we have to read all 4 sentences given here, understand what they mean, and then start reading each paragraph one by one, and you will come across the answers easily. Okay, do not just read one question then go try to find the answer. If you do that, it will be too time consuming and you will lose precious time during your test. Right, so we'll be reading all 4 of these statements. 23. A mention of how rational thinking enables someone to achieve physical goals. Okay. Next one, an account of how someone overcame a sad experience. Next one, a description of how someone decided to rethink their academic career path. And 26, an example of how someone risked his career out of a sense of duty. Now, see, when you read this, you understand that we have already read all this once. Mention of how rational thinking enables someone to achieve physical goals, we have read about it in paragraph E. So sometimes it is quite easy to understand like this. Sometimes you may have to read from the first paragraph. We read about somebody overcoming a sad experience. That was in paragraph C. Now, let's just go on reading like how I told you. In paragraph A, they are just mentioning how they have identified the 24 qualities and all that. Nothing is given there. Then in paragraph B, it is about Christopher Peterson overcoming his fear for public speaking. There also we don't have anything. And here in C paragraph, we see that this David Faugenbaum had a transition. He was preparing for university when he had an accident that put an end to his sports career. And then he was in depression, and then he therefore launched a support group to help others in similar situations, and he took action despite his own pain, a typical response of an optimist. That how he overcame a sad experience, that is what it is. 24, answer is C. Then again in D paragraph, you have Susan Segerstrom telling you to pay attention to the good things in life. Then we have in E paragraph, we talk about the physical stamina required for free diving and all that. We haven't actually come across any other paragraphs which talks about physical stamina. So here E paragraph, it says the physical stamina required for the sport, free diving, is intense, but the psychological demands are even more overwhelming. Streeter learned to untangle her fears from her judgment of what her body and mind could do. That is what the 23rd answer is. 23 is E. Next one, in F paragraph, we have this Todd Cashton telling newcomers should learn to respect their ignorance. Then in 2004, physician scientist Mauro Zapatera, here in this paragraph we actually read about this person changing his career path. He was a researcher at Harvard Medical School. He was miserable as his research wasn't compatible with his curiosity about healing. He finally took a break, and during 8 months in Santa Fe, Zapatera learned about alternative healing techniques not taught at Harvard. When he got back, he switched labs to study how to study how cerebrospinal fluid nourishes the developing nervous system. So basically he changed his career. So that one is G. The description of how someone decided to rethink their academic career path. So that is G. And this one we've already read. An example of how someone risked his career out of a sense of duty, that is given in paragraph H. The new manager was intimidating staff, so Pedilios carefully recorded each instance of bullying and eventually took the evidence to a senior director, knowing his own job security would be threatened. But he had a moral obligation to do that, so he became fearless. So that is given in paragraph H. So basically, if you read the entire thing once for other types of questions, this type of question becomes very easy. Now we move on to the next one. When evolution runs backwards. Evolution isn't supposed to run backwards, yet an increasing number of examples show that it does, and that it can sometimes represent the future of a species. Now I'll just bring this page to the question section, and in the other tab we'll keep the passage. Okay, again this is you should spend about 20 minutes on questions 27 to 40. So generally the third passage of IELTS reading test is difficult. So it is better if you finish off all the first two passages within the half an hour, and then keep a half an hour for this passage alone, this third section alone. Okay. So when evolution runs backwards. Now we saw that the questions are multiple choice questions. So many people find this difficult because they actually don't understand what is being asked of them. Okay. So you have to understand the question clearly. Here it says, when discussing the theory developed by Louis Dollo, the writer says that. So when this person, the writer who has written this passage, when he is talking about the theory by Louis Dollo, what does he intend to say? It was immediately referred to as Dollo's law. It supported the possibility of evolutionary throwbacks. It was modified by biologists in the early 20th century, or it was based on many years of research. Now what we have to do is we have to check for the name Louis Dollo. So that is what we'll be doing here. We will just go through the lines, and when you do that you won't find the name Louis Dollo in the first paragraph. In the second paragraph you find the name Cesare Lombroso. Louis Dollo is not there. Okay, in the third paragraph we come across the name Louis Dollo. Now we'll read that. While Lombroso was measuring criminals, a Belgian paleontologist called Louis Dollo was studying fossil records and coming to the opposite conclusion. We don't know what that conclusion is because we have just looked for the name Louis Dollo. Now, by reading this passage, we'll see what the writer has to say about this. In 1890, he proposed that evolution was irreversible, that an organism is unable to return even partially to a previous stage already realized in the ranks of its ancestors. He is talking about evolution, how it is irreversible. Early 20th century biologists came to a similar conclusion, though they qualified it in terms of probability, stating that there is no reason why evolution cannot run backwards. It is just very unlikely, and so the idea of irreversibility in evolution stuck and came to be known as Dollo's law. Right. So this is what is mentioned about Dollo's the theory. Okay. It was immediately referred to as Dollo's law. No, nothing is mentioned like that. It was not. The key word here is immediately. Immediately means at once. When he proposed the theory itself, it was known as Dollo's law. But that is not mentioned here. It says, so the idea of irreversibility in evolution stuck and came to be known as Dollo's law. So it is not given here. It is supported by the possibility of evolutionary throwbacks. No, it says it is irreversible. It was based on many years of research. That was also not given. It was modified by biologists in the early 20th century. That is given. So here it says early 20th century biologists came to a similar conclusion, and they qualified it in terms of probability. So Dollo's law states that an organism is unable to return, or it states it as a fact that evolution was irreversible, whereas in 20th century biologists, they came to the same conclusion, but they said that it might be probable, though it is unlikely. Okay, so C is your answer for 27. Sometimes you can just get to the correct answer by eliminating all other possibilities. Next one, the humpback whale caught off Vancouver Island is mentioned because of, why is it mentioned? The humpback whale, which was caught off the coast of Vancouver Island, the exceptional size of its body, the way it exemplifies Dollo's law, the amount of local controversy it caused, or the reason given for its unusual features. So why is it mentioned here in the passage? Let's see. If Dollo's law is right, atavisms should occur only very rarely, if at all. Yet almost since the idea took root, exceptions have been cropping up. In 1919, for example, a humpback whale with a pair of leg-like appendages over a meter long, complete with a full set of limb bones, was caught off Vancouver Island in Canada. Explorer Roy Chapman Andrews argued at the time that the whale must be a throwback to a land-living ancestor. I can see no other explanation. So why is it mentioned here? Is it because of the exceptional size of its body? Nothing is mentioned about the size of its body. Its limbs are a meter long. That is, leg-like appendages are over a meter long. That is what is mentioned. So size of its body? No. The way it exemplifies Dollo's law? No. Exception. It is an exception to Dollo's law. Exemplifies means it becomes an example, whereas this is an exception. So second one is also out. The amount of local controversy it caused, nothing is mentioned about that. And the reason given for its unusual features. So basically it is mentioned because it is an exception to Dollo's law. And the whale this fellow Roy Chapman, he said that the whale must be a throwback to a land living ancestor and that he can see no other explanation. That is the only reason why it is mentioned in the passage. The reason given for its unusual features. So D is your answer. Next one. What is said about silent genes? Their numbers vary according to species. Raff disagreed with the use of the term. They could lead to the re-emergence of certain characteristics, or they can have an unlimited lifespan. Now we have to find the term silent genes here. So when you read in the next paragraph, let's see if there is a word silent genes here. It's not there. But we have something about genes. So let's read from this part. They reason that while some evolutionary changes involve the laws of genes and are therefore irreversible, others may be the result of genes being switched off. If these silent genes are somehow switched back on, they argued, long lost traits could reappear. If you want to make sure, you can just read the entire paragraph once. Since then, so many other examples have been discovered that it no longer makes sense to say that evolution is as good as irreversible, and this poses a puzzle. How can characteristics that disappeared millions of years ago suddenly reappear? In 1994, Rudolf Raff and colleagues at Indiana University in the USA decided to use genetics to put a number on the probability of evolution going into reverse. They reasoned that while some evolutionary changes involve the loss of genes and are therefore irreversible, others may be the result of genes being switched off. If these silent genes are somehow switched back on, they argued, long lost traits could reappear. So you have something about silent genes here. Their numbers vary according to species. No, it's not mentioned. Raff disagreed with the use of the term. Again, nothing is mentioned. They could lead to the re-emergence of certain characteristics. That is what is mentioned here. If the silent genes are somehow switched back on, the long lost traits could reappear. Therefore, your answer for 29 is C. Next one. The writer mentions the mole salamander because. Why does the writer mention the mole salamander? Because it exemplifies what happens in the development of most amphibians. Is it an example of what happens in the development of most amphibians? It suggests that Raff's theory is correct. It has lost and regained more than one ability. Its ancestors have become the subject of extensive research. Now let's see why this writer mentions mole salamander. Okay, now you have to find the term mole salamander here. Silent genes accumulate. So the next paragraph is all about silent genes. Next we have mole salamanders. As a possible example, the team pointed out. Okay, so now here the paragraph starts with the word as a possible example of something, silent genes. It may be silent genes because that is what is mentioned in the previous paragraph. As a possible example, the team pointed to the mole salamanders of Mexico and California. Like most amphibians, these begin life in a juvenile tadpole state, then metamorphose into an adult form, except for one species, the axolotl, which famously lives its entire life as a juvenile. The simplest explanation for this is that the axolotl lineage alone lost the ability to metamorphose, while others retained it. From a detailed analysis of the salamander's family tree, however, it is clear that the other lineages involved from an ancestor that itself had lost the ability to metamorphose. In other words, metamorphosis in mole salamander is an atavism. The salamander example fits with Raff's 10 million year time frame. So, why does the writer mention the mole salamander? Because it suggests Raff's theory is correct. That is why it is mentioned, because it's given in the last line. The salamander example fits with Raff's 10 million year time frame. So, does it exemplify what happens in the development of most amphibians? Nothing is mentioned about that. It has lost and regained more than one ability, that is also not mentioned, and its ancestors have become the subject of extensive research, that is also not mentioned. What it says is, it suggests that Raff's theory is correct. So B is your answer. Next one, which of the following does Wagner claim? Members of the Bachia lizard family have lost and regained certain features several times. Evidence shows that the evolution of the Bachia lizard is due to the environment. His research into South American lizards supports Raff's assertions. His findings will apply to other species of South American lizards. Which of the following does Wagner claim? Now we have to find out what Wagner says. More recently, however, examples have been reported that break the time limit, suggesting that silent genes may not be the whole story. In a paper published last year, biologist Gunther Wagner of Yale University reported some work on the evolutionary history of a group of South American lizards called Bachia. Many of these have minuscule limbs, tiny. Some look more like snakes than lizards, and a few have completely lost the toes on their hind limbs. Other species, however, sport up to 4 toes on their hind legs. The simplest explanation is that the toe lineages never lost their toes, but Wagner begs to differ. So, what is Wagner saying? According to his analysis of the Bachia family tree, the toad species re-evolved toes from toeless ancestors, and what is more, digit loss and gain has occurred on more than one occasion over tens of millions of years. So, what he says is, members of the Bachia lizard family have lost and regained certain features several times. That is what this line says. The toad species re-evolved toes from toeless ancestors, and what is more, digit loss and gain has occurred on more than one occasion over tens of millions of years. That is what he says. So 31 answer is A. Now we have complete each sentence with the correct ending. So basically we are completing the sentences. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions here, and you have 7 options. That means 2 should be left off. Okay, so for this, it's a bit confusing, but still you can do it. First, we read all these parts of statements given in the question numbers. Then we read this part. Then it should not be assumed. Answers should not be assumed. We have to actually go and find it from the passage. Okay. Now, for a long time, biologists rejected something. What? One of the answers will be here. So the answer will be here. Opposing views on evolutionary throwbacks are represented by. Opposing views are represented by what? Examples of evolutionary throwbacks have led to something. The shark and killer whale are mentioned to exemplify. Then, one explanation for the findings of Wagner's research is what? Now we read the other parts of the sentences. The question of how certain long lost traits could reappear. The occurrence of a particular feature in different species. Parallels drawn between behavior and appearance. The continued existence of certain genetic information. The doubts felt about evolutionary throwbacks. The possibility of evolution being reversible. Dollo's findings and the convictions held by Lombroso. Now let's read this part again. For a long time, biologists rejected what? Let's read from the beginning. Okay. The description of any animal as an evolutionary throwback is controversial. For the better part of a century, most biologists have been reluctant to use those words, mindful of a principle of evolution that says evolution cannot run backwards. So, for a long time, biologists rejected what? The possibility of evolution being reversible. They said that evolution will not be reversible and evolution is irreversible. That is what they said. Therefore, your answer for 32 is the letter F. For a long time, biologists rejected the possibility of evolution being reversible. Next one. Opposing views on evolutionary throwbacks are represented by what? Okay. Now we go on to read this, but as more and more examples, we've already read that, so we'll just leave it off for the time being. You can just read it at your leisure by playing back the session. Playing back the video. The technical term for an evolutionary throwback is an atavism. From the Latin atavis meaning forefather. The word has ugly connotations thanks largely to Cesare Lombroso, a 19th century Italian medic who argued that criminals were born, not made, and could be identified by certain physical features that were throwbacks to a primitive subhuman state. While Lombroso was measuring criminals, a Belgian paleontologist called Louis Dollo was studying fossil records and coming to the opposite conclusion. Okay, so we have two people here having different views, opposing views. So you have the answer here, Dollo's findings and the convictions held by Lombroso. So opposing views on evolutionary throwbacks are represented by G. Your answer is G, Dollo's findings and the convictions held by Lombroso. Next one. Examples of evolutionary throwbacks have led to what? Led to the question of how certain long lost traits could reappear, occurrence of a particular feature in different species, parallels drawn between behavior and appearance, the continued existence of certain genetic information, doubts felt about evolutionary throwbacks. Let's see. Examples of evolutionary throwbacks have led to what? Okay, so here we talk about Dollo's law in this paragraph. Then if Dollo's law is right, then atavisms should occur only very rarely, if at all. Then they talk about humpback whale, which is an example of an exception of Dollo's law. Then we read about examples. Since then, so many other examples have been discovered that it no longer makes sense to say that evolution is as good as irreversible. And this poses a puzzle. How can characteristics that disappeared millions of years ago suddenly reappear? So we have a question there. Examples of evolutionary throwbacks have led to the question of how certain long lost traits could reappear. You have your answer there. Your answer is A. Next, the shark and killer whale are mentioned to exemplify what? Right, now we have to find where sharks and killer whales are mentioned. So it is not mentioned in this paragraph, so we'll move on. And see here in this paragraph also it is not mentioned. It's about silent genes. We have already read that, so there is no point in wasting time reading all that. Remember, time management is essential for you to get enough time to find answers in the reading test. Here in this paragraph it is all about the salamander mole salamander. Then in this it is about Gunther Wagner and what he talks about lizards. So here we have in the next paragraph. So what's going on? One possibility is that these traits are lost and then simply reappear in much the same way that similar structures can independently arise in unrelated species such as the dorsal fins of sharks and killer whales. Okay, so what is being mentioned here? Traits are killer whales and sharks are mentioned to give an example of one possibility that the traits are lost and then simply reappear. Okay, so sharks and killer whales are mentioned to exemplify what? Occurrence of a particular feature in different species. So one feature, similar structures can independently arise in unrelated species. That is what is mentioned. So B is your answer, the occurrence of a particular feature in different species. Next, one explanation for the findings of Wagner's researchers. Okay, so we have the paragraph which mentions Wagner. And we have here one sentence. The simplest explanation is that the toad lineages never lost their toes. But Wagner begs to differ. Let's read that paragraph once more to make it clear what is being mentioned there. Gunther Wagner of Yale University reported some work on the evolutionary history of a group of South American lizards called 𝐈𝐄𝐋𝐓𝐒. Many of these have minuscule limbs, some look more like snakes than lizards, and a few have completely lost the toes on their hind limbs. Other species, however, sport up to 4 toes on their hind legs. The simplest explanation is that the toad lineages never lost their toes. So here, let's see. One explanation for the findings of Wagner's researchers. A is not the answer, B is not the answer. Parallels drawn between behavior and appearance. No, we don't have anything about behavior. The continued existence of certain genetic information. So that is what is mentioned here. They never lost their toes. It was always there. Okay, so the continued existence of certain genetic information. D is your answer. Now we come to the last part of this reading passage, and that is 37 to 40, yes, no, not given. Now this you have to make sure that you are writing as per the instruction. If it is true, false, not given, you have to write that. If it is yes, no, not given, you have to write only that. In place of yes, if you write true, and in place of no, if you write false, your answers will be marked wrong. So you have to be very careful here, because many people have lost marks because of this mix-up. So yes, no, not given, we have 4 statements. In this type of question, in true, false, not given, or yes, no, not given, you have to find the answer by reading each question. Each question should be read. That is, you have to read one question, then go find the answer, then come back, read the next one. You have to do that. Right. So Wagner was the first person to do research on South American lizards. We read again and again about Wagner doing research on South American lizards, but nothing which states that he was the first person to do so. Did you read anything of that sort? No. So that information is not given. So your answer will be not given for 37. Next one. Wagner believes that Bacchia lizards with toes had toeless ancestors. That also we read. According to his analysis of the Bacchia family tree, the toad species re-evolved toes from toeless ancestors. So that is what he believed. So your answer is yes. The temporary occurrence of long lost traits in embryos is rare. Now we didn't read anywhere about embryos, so we have to go read the passages after the paragraphs from which we got the previous answer. Okay, so here it is mentioned about fins and sharks and killer whales. Right. Another more intriguing possibility is that the genetic information needed to make toes somehow survived for tens or perhaps hundreds of millions of years. Nothing is mentioned about embryos. Now we move on. But if silent genes degrade within 6 to 10 million years, how can long lost traits be reactivated over longer time scales? The answer may lie in the womb. Early embryos. This is the only paragraph in which we read about embryos. Early embryos of many species develop ancestral features. Snake embryos, for example, sprout hind limb buds. Okay, what is the question here? The temporary occurrence of long lost traits in embryos is rare. That is the question or the statement here. And here it says early embryos of many species develop ancestral features. So is it rare? No, it is not rare. Therefore, your answer is no. Evolutionary throwbacks might be caused by developmental problems in the womb. Yes, because we already read that the answer may lie in the womb. If silent genes degrade within 6 to 10 million years, how can long lost traits be reactivated over longer time scales? The answer may lie in the womb. So what he writes is evolutionary throwbacks might be caused by developmental problems in the womb. Yes is your answer. And with that we come to the end of our reading live session today. So I hope that you have a great weekend and bye. See you next week.